Hey everyone, it's Makeda Valletta. I hope you are doing well today. So I'm reporting live from New Orleans, and for those of you who have been following me, you know that I'm a city girl. I'm a big city girl. I love cities. I'm from New York City originally. Moved to Chicago a year ago. Chicago is another big, beautiful city. And every city has its pros and its cons. Today we're going to talk about New Orleans. It's another city that's dear to my heart. New Orleans is definitely one of my favorite places on earth, and it's very unique. I call it the smallest big city because it's actually a small city, but it has big city attributes in the sense that so many people come through New Orleans. So many people come in and out of New Orleans. For like every month, there's another big convention, a conference, or event, that festival or something that's bringing tons of people here. You know, you have Mardi Gras, which is like a 2-week festivity happening in the beginning of the year. You have Essence Fest in July. You have Jazz Fest in the spring. You have Halloween, which is sometimes bigger than Mardi Gras. So there's a lot of things that goes on here, and there's a lot of people that come in and out of New Orleans. It is like New York City, my hometown. It is very unique. And there's no place like New York City. There's no place like New Orleans. And funny enough, they both start with new. So you have New Orleans and New York, the Big Easy and the Big Apple, right? Prior to coming to New Orleans, I had never been to another city that stimulated me. Like, I've been places that are pretty or cool, whatever, but they're not inspiring or stimulating. New York inspires me every single day. You never know what you might see when you walk around the corner or, you know, when you walk down the street. It's constantly stimulating, constantly inspiring. And I feel the same way about New Orleans. The same thing. A lot of artsy people. Very unpredictable. You never know what you might see when you go outside or walk around the corner. And it's beautiful. Beautiful architecture. There's a lot of trees and flowers growing wild, which I love. I don't like when stuff is like perfectly manicured. And one of my favorite things about New Orleans is the women. The women in New Orleans are so wild. They're different than women in other parts of the country. In the sense that, well, for one, people tend to have babies pretty early in New Orleans. Like pretty young. Like if you're 30 and you don't have kids yet, you're like really abnormal here. And so, but it's like for women in New Orleans, like all the women I know have husbands and have kids, but the partying doesn't stop. They still go out, they still party, they still have fun. And a lot of times the men are home taking care of the kids and the women are out doing their thing. And so unlike what you see in other cities where a lot of times when women have babies, it's like the end of their life or it's a big ordeal for them to go out. I don't see that here. And I love that. Also, this city is very different because you can just drink outside. Like you could go buy a bottle of rum and pour some rum in your cup and go walk down the street and drink, and it's totally fine. If you're in a restaurant, you could say, you know what, I want a margarita to go, and I'll put it in a to-go cup, and you can go. Can't do that anywhere else in the country. And so a lot of times when I tell New Orleans people that, you know, that's not allowed in other parts of the country, they seem kind of surprised. Like, really? And I'm like, yeah, if you try to do that in other parts of the country, you end up arrested. So it's a very unique culture in that sense. And, you know, people call New York City the city that never sleeps, but I say that's New Orleans because New Orleans is the city where it'll be 6 in the morning, sun's coming up, and people are still dancing on top of tables, still partying on the sidewalk. You'll see an elderly couple drunk stumbling through the French Quarters, which I love. It's not like it's just young people. You see older couples like that too. And so it's a very vibrant, fun city. Like if I wanted to come somewhere and let loose and drink and have a good time, I'd rather come to New Orleans over Miami or over Vegas. Because New Orleans to me is just so much more interesting, so much more pretty. Good music, talented musicians, very good music here. No house music, which I love. People who know me know I can't stand house music, which a lot of people in Chicago a lot of times want to kill me for saying that, but house music can also be very big in New York too, especially amongst black people in Brooklyn. In Harlem, you don't hear it too much. Some Puerto Ricans in Spanish Harlem listen to like their Puerto Rican house music, but it's not really that big in Harlem. But in Brooklyn, black people love house music. Same thing is true with Detroit and Chicago, and I can't stand it. I'm like, no, I hate it. In New Orleans, I've never heard them play house music. A lot of times I don't even know what you're talking about when you say house music. They're like music that you play at a house. They don't really even know what you're talking about. So I love that because I could come here and hear good music and not have to be worried about house music. And it's just a place where the women have a dominance. You know, they're sexually, they stand strong in their sexuality. The men don't have a problem with that. Men here don't seem to violate. Like, I've been coming down here a lot since 2007, and there are lots of beautiful women in New Orleans. The men here, you know, I can never blame a man for trying to talk to a woman that he finds attractive. That's what men are supposed to do. And you can never blame a man for trying. In New Orleans, I don't feel like the men do too much. Like in New York and in Chicago, sometimes men can do too much. They want to walk next to you. You have your earphones on. They're like trying to tell you to take it off. They're talking to you anyway, even though you're having a conversation on the phone. They just violate your personal space. I've never had the issue with men in New Orleans. Like, they may compliment me. If I keep walking, they leave me alone. They don't start walking next to me. They don't put their hands on me. They don't start cursing you out because you don't want to talk to them and dissing you. So I like, you know, the temperament of New Orleans men in that way. Like, they don't do too much. I haven't had a problem with them. And especially in a place where a woman will just jump out the car in the middle of the street and start doing bounce dance, which is a really difficult booty dance to master. Women will do that all over the place, and men are not tripping and feeling like he could grab her and touch her because of it. I don't even see men go up behind her and try to stand behind her or dance with her. They just watch her do it. She does what she does. Nobody's calling her names or trying to violate. And so I like that a lot. And the history here, there's some very intense history here, especially when it comes to African, Native American, Afro-Indigenous peoples. But the flip side, like we said, every city has its pros and its cons. New Orleans is pretty dangerous. It's a lot more dangerous than Chicago. People think that Chicago is the worst city in America, and it's actually not. I actually look at the stats all the time. And while Chicago does have a violence problem, if we look at the cities with the highest homicide and you know, highest murder rate and violence, Chicago's not even in the top 10. The latest list I've looked at of 25, it was number 24. Detroit and St. Louis are usually the ones that tie for number 1, but also Oakland is worse, Baltimore is worse. A lot of times Atlanta and D.C. places being worse. Milwaukee, Birmingham, Alabama, Buffalo, New York. There's a lot of places that are worse than Chicago. But Chicago just gets so much attention, and not to say that what they say about Chicago is not real, but Chicago, half of it is like a very beautiful city, and it's just not the worst. You know, I'm just saying there are worse, and New Orleans is worse. Now, I've spent a lot of time in New Orleans, and nothing has ever happened to me. But I've been in a lot of dangerous cities, and nothing has ever happened to me. Doesn't mean that the city's not dangerous. So when people judge things on like, well, nothing's ever happened to me, it doesn't really mean anything. You know, there's people who live in the most dangerous of places, nothing ever happened to them. Doesn't mean that it's not dangerous, okay? So New Orleans, like, people get shot all the time. Mardi Gras just passed. I had a good time, but then I'm watching the news yesterday, and I find out 8 people got shot in Mardi Gras Day at parades. So that's unfortunate. It really is. And so that's one flip side to it. And it's so small that I bet that a lot of the cops know a lot of these criminals. Their families probably know each other. They probably grew up together, which makes things even more complicated, you know. And in New Orleans, like, people might start shooting at a second line. Like, you just don't know. But second lines are like one of the dopest things ever that you can only find in New Orleans. And it's a tradition that comes from funerals and raising money for the dead and burying the dead for black people. And now it's done not just around that, but it can be done like during Mardi Gras time or other things that's going on. I'm not going to get too in-depth about that right now, as I'm just doing this quick video, but I do suggest looking up second lines. Hold on while I hydrate. And drinking some watermelon juice. So it is February 15th, and it's 80 degrees outside in New Orleans. And I'm about to go outside and get some heat and humidity. I love humidity because it gives your skin a glow and it makes my hair more moisturized. And, you know, I definitely prefer swamp weather and rainforest weather over the desert. People from California always say they have the best weather. I don't like that Southern California, hot in the daytime, cold at night, no humidity, not my thing. The humidity makes me feel alive. and it gives the moistness in the air, helps things be moisturized. Whereas like you're in Southern California, you go to a park in LA and it's like no smoking because you might start a forest fire. Like that's not cool to me. Too dry. So that's not my cup of tea. I actually love this weather. But if you ever come here in the summer, realize it is super hot. So you're going to have to hydrate. And that is more than drinking water. You can check out my hydration videos on my page, The Body Scientist 81. I just sipped on some watermelon juice, which is high in potassium. When it's really hot and you're sweating, you need more than water. So I'm not going to get into that science right now. But if you come here in the summertime, definitely be prepared to hydrate, especially if you're drinking all the time, which dehydrates you more. So I just wanted to do this quick video. I actually have to work with a client. I've been spending a lot of time here for the past 11 years. And it's like I'm always like telling people you must go to New Orleans. If you go anywhere else in the U.S., you must go to New Orleans. Like New York is dope. New Orleans is dope, okay? Before I came to New Orleans, I had been to Atlanta. I had been to Miami. I had been to L.A. Vegas. All these places that people rave about. And to me, New Orleans is so much doper, so much funkier than all those places. The flip side, another con is that one of my friends would always tell me it's not a good city for black men. She said, if you were a black man, you had no chance here, you had to get out of the city, which is why I feel like a lot of New Orleans' best men probably are not in New Orleans. They're probably going to Atlanta or some other city. I like New Orleans a lot better than Atlanta. But one difference is that, there are more successful black people in Atlanta. There's a lot of people in Atlanta who are faking the funk too, but there are bona fide successful black Americans in Atlanta. And in New Orleans, most black people are in a service position where they're just serving tourists. And it can be hard for them to break out of that into more professional positions. And so like while there's a lot of restaurants here, you never see black restaurant owners and managers, for example. So that is a real issue. From people that I know that are from here, I've always heard across the board that the education system sucks, which is not good. And that sets you up for failure. I love New Orleans. I love the traditions, the Afro-Indigenous traditions here. And I would love to see people from New Orleans, black people from New Orleans, improve the educational system and become professionals. So you do have black professionals in this city. You do have black doctors and nurses and attorneys and government officials. I would like to see that here and not have them all leave for a better opportunity, because New Orleans is very special. And since Katrina, there are a lot of outsiders who've come to this city and who are trying to change it. And that really makes me upset. And so the culture here is very unique. And when I hear people talk about New York, back in the 70s before I was born, and they're like, oh yeah, we used to just pull boom boxes out and have a block party and have the speakers. You cannot do that in New York now. If you try to think you're going to come out on the sidewalk with some big speakers and have a party without a permit, you are sadly mistaken. And I don't want to see that happen to New Orleans, because that takes away some of the funkiness of the city and what makes it the city. People come to New Orleans for the music, for the wildness, for that. If you come here, definitely see more than Bourbon Street. Going to Bourbon Street is like coming to New York and just going to Times Square. New York is so much more than Times Square. And most New Yorkers don't even hang out in Times Square. And Times Square is totally overrated. Those are not things that are uniquely New York. Same thing with New Orleans. See more than Bourbon Street, because New Orleans has a lot more going on than that. Check out Frenchman Street, check out Uptown, just go on St. Charles, see different parts of the city. I know tons of black people that come for Essence Fest and they never leave Canal Street and Bourbon Street. See more of the city. There's so much I want to say about New Orleans, but I have to go work with a client now. I have a good amount of people that I work with here, so I got to get ready for that. But I just wanted to do this quick video, just express my love for New Orleans and to let you know that if you haven't been, you should definitely check out the Big Easy, this big, beautiful little city. All right? Bye, people. Have a great day.